Welcome to Eighth House Portal. Thank you for joining me. Today's topic is about releasing the old self. There's an alchemical Latin phrase, solve e coagula. But what do I mean by alchemical? So, alchemy is the ancient practice, and it's an early form of chemistry. It was a combination of science, philosophy, spirituality, and symbolism. The famous thought of turning ordinary metals to gold came from that practice. And alchemists believed that everything in nature could be purified and turned into a higher form. The spiritual meaning is that alchemy is the art of transformation of the body, mind, and soul. And so it also teaches one to turn inward or to face pain, fears, shadows, and transform it into gold, or in this case would be wisdom, power, and rebirth. So going back to the term solve coagula, meaning to dissolve and coagulate. So from medieval alchemy, and it encompasses the principle of transformation. So meaning one has to break down the form, solve, to then rebuild or coagulate, to bring together into a new form. The earliest reference apparently appears in writings of Maria Prophetessa, an ancient alchemist who lived between the 1st and 3rd centuries. And she's known for her invention of the bain-marie. This invention allows one to use gentle heat when necessary, so basically a double boiler. That's what I use when I melt chocolate to make a cake. So you put water in a pot, you bring it to a boil, not a violent boil, but a boil. You place a bowl on top of the pot, and the water must not touch the bowl. You put the chocolate in the bowl, and it slowly melts. You know, if you do it too quickly, the chocolate's not going to end up the way you need it to be. So you have to melt it slowly, and then you either put it in your cake batter or put it in a mold, and it takes on a new form. Some interpretations use solve coagula as a metaphor for personal growth and transformation. So, inner alchemy, my understanding is that one has to evolve by breaking down things like old beliefs and confronting fragmented parts of yourself. And that way, it can allow one to become more whole and authentic, a whole authentic version of yourself. The ancient Egyptians have the Book of the Dead, and that speaks of shedding attachments as the soul journeys to the afterlife. So what they've done is they've divided the soul into several elements, what they call the Ka, meaning the vital essence or life force, and then the Ba, the personality or individuality, and then they have the Ka, being the transformed immortal being that would be a result of proper preservation and integration of the Ka and the Ba. And the spells that are contained in the Book of the Dead are meant to protect these aspects of the soul and its continued existence and life force. And so when you translate some of these spells, it mentions a spiritual, or as they put it, a reptilian decay can prevent the soul's journey, risking its annihilation. I thought that was interesting. Then you have the myth of the phoenix. There's always been something about the myth of the phoenix that stirs that ancient energy within me. It's more than just a story. It's a spark of something eternal, the whisper of fire in the dark, the promise that from the ashes, something new will rise. The phoenix is one of the rare myths that seem to belong everywhere and nowhere. You can find traces of it in Egyptian scrolls, Roman poetry, and also mentions of it in medieval manuscripts. Let me share a story I created about the phoenix before we get a little bit more into it. Long ago, when the boundaries between the worlds were thinner than the morning mist, and the sun itself bowed low over the western sea, there lived a bird no man could tame, and no time could touch. They called her Finfiach, the ember-winged one, a name only whispered in the twilight by druids and old monks with ink-stained fingers. Some said she came from the land of the setting sun, where the sky bleeds into the waves. Others claimed she was born from the first fire lit by the gods before the shaping of the earth. Finfeich was unlike any bird of forest or field. Her feathers shimmered like copper beneath moonlight. Her eyes held memory of stars long fallen, and when she sang, time itself held its breath. She built no nest of twigs or straw, but of frankincense and golden myrrh atop the sacred yew of the west, a tree older than sorrow. Every 500 years, or perhaps 5,000, for who can measure the life of a phoenix, she would take the highest bow, sing her death song, and burst into flame, consumed utterly. Yet from her own ashes she would rise again, not younger, not older, but reborn, ageless as stone, wild as fire. Now in the days when Britain still bore the wounds of Roman retreat and Saxon conquest, a wandering monk named Cadwallon heard the tale of the bird from a Pictish seer. She spoke in riddles. Seek the place where the sun weeps, where no beast walks and no man sleeps. There the ember wing is flame and breath, the fire that dies to conquer death. Drawn by the call of mystery, Cadwallon journeyed westward beyond the bounds of maps, past the stone circles and standing tombs where the old gods still whispered. In time he found the sacred yew on a crag above the sea, scorched black, yet pulsing with warmth. He watched as Finfeich rose anew from her embers, a vision of holy flame, and in that moment he saw all things made new. Not just the bird, but the world. He saw kingdoms fall and rise, winters melt into springs, and the souls of the dead stepping once more into light. Cadwallon returned and told none but his scribe, but word spread as all true wonder does. Some say the monks carved her likeness into the bestiaries, cloaking her in Latin and scripture. Others say the druids knew her true name and sang it in their rites beneath the solstice moon. To this day, on the western cliffs where the yew tree grows twisted and charred, some still claim to hear a distant song, a single burning note carried on the wind. And those who hear it feel no fear, only a strange peace. For they have heard the truth of the phoenix, that in fire there is renewal, that what dies in light is not lost, but changed. This story is not just a tale of immortality. It's an initiation story, the oldest known symbol of death and rebirth through conscious surrender. What we can try to understand is that as an archetype, the phoenix embodies the cycle of transformation that every soul must endure. And one must remember that its death does not mean annihilation, it's transmutation. Okay, so what do I mean by transmutation? So, from my understanding, it's a process where one goes through to completely change the form, the nature or substance of something, but in a spiritual sense, goes through to reach a deeper understanding of yourself and the world or the universe around you. It's mastering the fire within and turning shadow into wisdom and pain into power. It's a type of liberation, which doesn't come from escaping the darkness, but by integrating it. It's where you become the architect. We all experience phoenix moments. For example, when a relationship ends, you may lose who you thought you were. Or when you become ill, your old identity burns away. Think about that. Like if you become ill or you get injured, things change. Especially if you're somebody that's a really busy person and you're not well, you can't get out of bed and do what you normally do. It's it's a huge change, right? And so you become, something a little bit different. Or maybe when life forces you to shed the false and step into the unknown. When the phoenix is consumed by fire, this fire is what removes what no longer is true. So it's preparing the soul for renewal. So the ego, the attachment, the outdated versions of yourself, that inner death. I mentioned before the Latin term solve coagula, to dissolve and to bring together or rebuild. The phoenix burning up is the first stage in spiritual alchemy called calcination, where the material self, the ego, is reduced to ash. And only from that purified matter can the gold of the spirit arise. There's the death of illusion, pride or fear. And only after facing symbolic death can true life be reborn. So, in a way, we are all phoenixes in some stage of the cycle, whether that's igniting, so like facing crisis or loss, or maybe the burning stage where you're surrendering control, or the ash stage where it's the void, the sacred pause, or the rebirth, your new self and the integration. The phoenix does not fear the fire because it knows the truth. The flame is not its end, but its beginning. Carl Jung has a concept called individuation, which is a process of becoming the whole, unique self by integrating both conscious and unconscious elements of the psyche. When I mention psyche, it's referring to everything that makes up the inner life of a human. So the conscious mind, that like thoughts and feelings, and then personal unconscious. So things like memories, experiences, things that can be accessed but not at the forefront of our awareness. And also the collective unconscious. So things that are like inherited universal patterns or shared archetypes across humanity. Jung describes the psyche as self regulating, trying to remain in balance. He says it's about wholeness and including the shadow, the anima and animus, personal and collective unconscious elements. Um, I mean, the whole topic of anima and animus can go into a whole episode, which I'm not going to do right now, but the old self can be explained as the persona, the mask we wear in public, that identity we have grown into, which has been shaped by family, society, culture, and also the unconscious patterns that we have. When you release your old self, you have to let go of fixed identities, conditioned behavior, and shadows that you have not acknowledged yet, so that your true self can then emerge. When I speak of the shadow, it is what represents the part of us that we repress or deny. And you will have to face and confront your shadows and integrate them at some point. This can be extremely uncomfortable. But to do that, you will need to release attachments and old narratives about who you are. So when you release your old self, you are facing your inner darkness, acknowledging it and transforming it into conscious energy. Now, I could go on, but I think I'm going to stop there for now with this episode. It's a very short episode, um, and it's basically there's a lot more that goes into this that I need to break down. I don't know if anyone's listened to previous episodes, but one of the things I did mention is the whole reason for partly the reason for this podcast creation was because I have so many questions myself. This is me also learning and researching because a lot of these topics I have heard from other people. I'm very thankful that others have gone and researched it themselves and shared what they've learned. But in the end, I'm the type of person that I like to go and do the research myself in the end and see for myself. Um, and it takes a lot of work, right? So I don't want to just spew out information for the sake of having a long episode. That's not what I'm going to do. I like to find, I like to give quality, especially when I'm sharing it, not just for myself, but especially when I share what I'm learning with others. It has to be quality. Otherwise, there's no point to me doing this. But there's a lot more that I need to look into. I want to kind of get into the alchemical process as well. And I mentioned like the anima and animus, that can be a whole episode on its own. There's all of these elements to what I've spoken about that can be literally taken and expanded on. And also, it's December. So I think we all kind of understand and feel what happens when we come to closer to the end of the year. There's a lot happening. There's way more happening than it should be. Um, and sometimes some of us, like myself, take on more than we really should. um, I have a competition I'm helping a group of children get ready for, among many other things. And also, I've been working on a special episode for the winter solstice um, that I want to share with everybody before the end of the year, obviously. So, yeah, I don't want to rush everything. And there's a bit more research I'd like to do before I continue sharing more of what I've started about releasing the old self. If anyone has anything they'd like to share about what we've spoken about so far or this topic in general, please go ahead and make a comment. Share your experiences. If you're somebody that's worked with others that, if you have something that you think might help everybody listening, please do share it. If you have any questions, comments, recommendations, send me a message. I hope that this does help some of you that are seeking the same type of knowledge that I am, or just the curious. And hopefully you'll stay tuned for the next episode, where we'll continue with this topic and hopefully get into the process of alchemy, right? So thank you for joining me on Eighth House Portal for this episode. And I want you to remember, always share what you're going through. This is going to be hopefully a space where we will support one another. And I will see you next time. Take care.